Greg, can you go to slide 2 for them?
Well, that's going well. Come on, Greg, wake up.
Live stream is slowing down my computer. Hang on. Oh my
Well,
gosh.
that's going well. Come on, Greg, wake up.
Live stream is slowing down my computer. Hang on. Oh my
Well, that's
gosh.
going well. Come on, Greg, wake up.
Live stream is slowing down my computer. Hang on. Sorry, guys. We got so many things going on here. Hang on. Share screen.
Well, that's going well. Come on, Greg, wake up.
Live stream is slowing down my computer. Hang on. Sorry, guys. We got so many things going on here. Hang on. Share screen.
Well, that's going well.
Okay, so positive experience. I'm Emily Sansbury and I'm part of the 0203 age group. So this is the impact of positive leadership on me. So sometimes as a younger player, I was sometimes timid or uncomfortable in my abilities, and I really needed leadership during this period. So one of my teammates, she guided me through this process, and she'd always tell me to be confident and have courage. And these words like really resonated and struck with me. So like whenever I played or like was at practice, I would really remember these words, and she would often like encourage me and make me feel confident about myself. And like because of her and because of like her leadership in me, I've grown into like the player and leader I am now.
Our second slide is about negative experiences and the kind of negative experiences that we may have. Oh, I lied. It's positive.
Yeah, sorry. So this is a continuation of my slide. So as my experience as a younger player and like those words, I have grown into a positive leadership for other. So I constantly seek out those who like needed someone to make them feel confident and make them feel like assured in their abilities. And I would tell them like the same words that were told to me, to be confident and have courage. And so this is like really a positive experience for me because every day I can see like firsthand how people like grow more strong in their abilities and feel more confident about themselves overall, like developing not only as a player, but as a leader. And that was my positive experience.
Now it's negative experience. So in negative experiences, we're going to be talking about the negative experiences that we experienced as players. So my name is Brooke Bonner, and I actually had a negative leadership experience recently this year at WAGS. So me and my NPL or 0203 select team went to WAGS this last couple of weekends ago, and we were playing a game. In the first 15 minutes, leadership was great. We were constantly talking on the field, and we scored 5 goals within about the first 15 minutes of the first half. And that's, that's something that's super insane, especially in WAGs when all these girls are competing. Really difficult level for exposure to college coaches. But it only took a couple of minutes within the second half for, us to get cocky, and then that leadership level goes down. We stop talking, and they ended up catching up to us 4-5. In the end, we still won the game, but the point of the story is if you're not constantly talking and not constantly motivating and not constantly having that leadership factor on the team, things will go downhill just as much as they could go uphill. And that was my negative experience.
So I also had a negative experience. And so my name's Addie Reed, and as a young player, I was always looked at as what should be a leader on the field. And I was never educated or aware of like what what a leader was supposed to do, or what was the right thing to do, or what the wrong thing was to do. And there's obviously never the right or wrong way to go at being a leader on the field, but there is sometimes in some scenarios the wrong way, like very badly. And that was probably one of my negative experiences. So as a young player, I hurt my personal relationships with some of my teammates by taking things too far on the field and getting too caught up in the game, and that causing some communication that was more derogatory and negative. For example, yelling at my teammates if a goal was scored, or yelling at my teammates if they did something wrong. And in my head as a young kid, I thought this was like the right way to go at communicating towards my teammates as the leader on the field, but then I was surely known that it was the wrong way of communicating towards my players. So I was sat down by a coach and one of my parents, and they weren't telling me that I was doing it wrong or had the wrong mindset. It was more of, letting me know like the right communication skills and a better vocabulary at going at how to speak to my teammates. And so this negative experience of having the wrong communication skills helped me as a player and a leader also, because it made me more aware of what's going to advance my personal relationships on the field and off the field, and how my teammates will respect me as a player and as a leader on the field too.
So my name's Lindsay, and there are like many ways you can go about being a leader, and one of them is being vocal. And being a vocal leader is basically just being able to speak up and encourage your team and direct them in a positive way, even when things aren't always going the way you'd wish they were. And like some ways you can do this is by like when you get down a goal, you can like encourage them like that you're not out of the game, and like you can still get that back, or you can motivate them while you're in a hard drill and just try to help them push through it whenever things aren't always easy.
My name is Paige, and then I also said that being a vocal leader starts with actively listening to your teammates and being able to hear what they're saying and then giving advice or direction. And I also said that you always need to be positive when giving feedback, such as like saying great goal or like good shot, and so you keep motivating them to improve.
Hi guys, my name is Rachel, and another way of being a leader is being a leader by example, which I think is a popular topic. So the idea of being a leader by example is obviously we are more than just soccer players, so you should be a leader on and off the field, which is a positive thing to be seen as a leader, because that like allows other people to put more trust in you, and you also get more responsibilities, but that can also come with freedom. So there's like pros and cons to the situation, but that forces you to grow up. I believe that as being a leader and leading by example, that actions do speak louder than words. And I think that comes into terms like when in any situation, because a lot of times people will just say like, oh, they talk the talk, but they're not walking the way they should. And I think that being a leader, you can do things through simple acts like picking up trash, using your manners, stepping out of your way to help someone, or I don't know, just encouraging one of your teammates.
My name's Catherine. Going off of what Rachel was saying, it's important that you lead and you're a good example to your teammates, because when you are leading in a good way, then other people are going to want to do that as well. And then that's going to better your team individually. And then that's also like you always have your kids looking up to you no matter what age you are. So you need to make sure that you're leading by example for anyone who's watching. Like you never know who's watching. So just be a good example.
Okay, so my name's Avery, and I had being a leader on the field as like the little topic I want to talk about. So I feel like being a leader on the field kind of stems off of being a leader off the field. It's just kind of the way that you act and like represent yourself. So I feel like something super important to know is you don't necessarily need to be a captain or in the starting 11 to be a leader. It doesn't go based off of skill level at all. It goes based off of how you treat your teammates, your coaches, the referees. Like, it's about always being there, the first one to pick someone up after a bad shot, first person to go high five someone after they score a goal, make a good pass, something along those lines. Just like making sure that your teammates stay in a good mindset on the field, while also keeping yourself in check, because I know sometimes that can be really difficult when you make a bad play, just knowing that you need to continue being that role model for everybody else, and continuing that off the field, like by doing all the things outside of soccer and at practice and all that kind of things.
So, as well as important as it is to be a leader on the field, it's also really crucial to be a leader off the field, and in the way that you carry yourself and you act and you treat others. So, just some examples of what it's really helps you to be a leader off the field is just working hard in school. Like, even if your grades aren't the best or stuff, just putting in that effort shows that you care and that like it's setting a good example. Going out of your way to help others, whether it's opening the door or sitting with somebody at lunch who doesn't have other people to sit with. It just shows that you care about others. Being respectful to teammates and peers and coaches and teachers and parents and all that. It sets such a good example. And taking initiative, whether it's grabbing a ball bag or doing your homework before practice or just setting yourself up for success.
Hi, I'm Julianne. I worked with Ashlyn to write more about being a leader off the field. A big part of, especially when you're going into middle school and high school and you have a lot more responsibilities with club soccer and your academic life, and if you have a job or not, you need to really know how to compartmentalize your responsibilities. Like, if you're at school, you can't really be thinking too much about all of the things you have to do at work or all of the things you have to do at soccer. And if you're at work, you can only think about work. You have to focus on your responsibilities there. So a big thing that you need to focus on as you grow up and as you work and have more responsibilities, because you're being a great leader, you really need to know how to differentiate between the different aspects of your life. Expanding on what Ashlyn said earlier about being respectful to teammates and teachers and parents, specifically the ways you can be like that in the classroom, off the field, taking, like, again, like Ashlyn said, taking initiative by like raising your hand in class or helping out classmates who need help with problems, or just answering questions and being really present and really active in class shows your teachers and shows counselors and adults how much you care, and they can take that and they can respect that and respect you and give you more responsibilities. And the final part, I said time management. Again, that's a huge thing with compartmentalizing your responsibilities. If you're at soccer, you need to make sure you have enough time in the day before practice or after practice where you can get your homework done. And if you're scrambling all day or all week about getting a project done and you wait till the last minute, but you have a game Saturday and Sunday, that's just not going to work. So you have to really be mature, and like Rachel said earlier, you just have to grow up and manage your time.
I think another thing for being a good leader is being aware of your weaknesses. A key thing that I think everyone should know is that you are not perfect, but knowing your weaknesses and striving to fix your weaknesses and improve them shows that you care and that you want to be reliable, which is a smart thing to do because it shows that you're a leader, and knowing that you might be weak in something, someone else can help you, if that makes sense. And an example is like I used to struggle with being vocal on the field, like me playing myself, being able to play the ball I was good at, but I wasn't being loud enough or encouraging enough to help other people. And especially being a center back, it's important that you're vocal and you're able to encourage your teammates and tell them when there's a man on or that you need to pass the ball and go to a different outlet. So that's something that I struggled with, but I learned to fix. So on the field, a lot you'll hear me talk more and be encouraging and be one of the louder people on the field.
I also said that being aware of your weaknesses can, by watching and learning from others, this can help you improve upon your weaknesses and become a more well-rounded leader, having all the qualities we discussed earlier.
It's also really important as a leader to be able to give and take constructive criticism, never in a negative way, but in a way as looking at it just to help push your team and yourself to be better. Just collectively, maybe it's on the field, maybe it's off the field, maybe it's how you carry yourself and how you act. Just always knowing that you can be better, but not to be stressed.
Awesome, thanks guys. Any final word from that group? That was a good bit of experience sharing, and hopefully you guys who are listening in feel like you could take away some good advice, because they hit a lot of really great points and we're all over the board. But that's a little bit of what all encompassing, right? So thank you. And hopefully you guys listening in again are taking some notes and getting prepared for your own opportunity to lead this portion of the group meeting. So yeah, now we can come on over and talk through our guest speaker. Just to give a little bit of a quick introduction. I've known Nicole for a long time. She and I played at University of Notre Dame together. And I'm gonna let her talk through some of the highlights of her career. I basically asked her to tell her soccer story, and along those lines, I think you guys are going to hear a lot about leadership struggles and overcoming obstacles and things like that. And it's going to be a pretty cool story. So hopefully you guys are excited there. Just to hit some of the highlights, she grew up playing club soccer in Connecticut. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was Oakwood Soccer Club. Yeah, I just went through your profile a few minutes before the call.
Yeah.
And then you also played for the Soccer Plus,
Mm-hmm.
right? With Tony, the Chico.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys have heard of that name before. He's kind of a big deal in women's soccer. And then going on to play collegiately at University of Notre Dame. And I'll let you talk about how it was nearly Davidson.
Yep.
Yeah.
So close. So close.
Yeah. And then your involvement with the Puerto Rican national team on the youth side, and then with the full team. So yeah, I'm gonna let you go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Hi guys. So first off, just thanks for having me, and thanks for listening. Because I think I don't think I'm very important, so I appreciate you guys listening. So I'll kind of tell you guys what I'm currently doing and then kind of backtrack from there, because I think it's kind of interesting to just see where people end up and then kind of hear their story. So I currently live in Colorado, in Denver, and I just got married like 2 weeks ago. I have a very cute dog, but he's out playing fetch right now, so if he comes back, I'll show him to you. And I'm a high school teacher. I teach Spanish. I teach grades 9 through 12. And then I also coach. So kind of busy, but kind of, I think it's interesting to see how all the pieces of just like where I've been have kind of brought me to where I am and involved in not just teaching, but really like how that has kind of become a way that I've been able to impact soccer as well. So just kind of the back and forth. So yeah, Sarah said I grew up in Connecticut. I ended up going to Notre Dame. Sorry, it wasn't Davidson. Davidson was really cool. But I went there as a sophomore. So I actually went to UConn my first year and transferred into Notre Dame as a sophomore, and had the March before I went into Notre Dame, I like destroyed my ankle and was out from March until 2 weeks before preseason. And that was really scary because I was like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting a year to go to this school, and it's a huge school, and they had just won a national championship. And I was freaking out, and for good reason, because I was not fit enough and I hadn't really touched a ball. And I didn't know anyone. And so I went into preseason and did like very mediocre on all of the tests, and just didn't really play very well because I hadn't played in a lot of months, and just like my confidence was just like completely shot. And my sophomore season was probably one of the seasons that might have been one of my hardest ever in like my life. I think I played maybe 5 minutes, maybe in one game where we were already up like 7-0. And I didn't travel one time. And I got treated pretty poorly by my coach. And it was really hard. It was really hard because I had always been a leader. Like I had always been someone who had started and who had, people had come to for whatever they needed, and coaches trusted me. And I was vocal on, like, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm really loud. So I was always really loud on the field. And that's how I grew up. Like I played that way and had always been confident because the people around me believed in me. And then all of a sudden, no one believed in me, and I didn't really know how to believe in myself anymore. And so it was really hard. And that same fall, we had World Cup qualifying with the U20 team for Puerto Rico. And so it was in Cuba. And so I think that honestly saved my soccer career, because at this point I was just like super unhappy, and I didn't want to play soccer anymore. And I'd never felt like that before. I just was like, I'm done. I don't want to play. What am I doing? What am I doing with my life? And I got called into camp for this tournament, and I went for, I think it was like 2 weeks at the same time that we had some games, but our coach let me go because I wasn't playing anyway. So it was fine. And I went down to Cuba with my team, and we had our first practice, and I just kind of brought all of the feelings that I had been feeling at Notre Dame, like to the field in Puerto Rico. And those teammates had never seen me like that. Like I'd been playing with a lot of them since I was 15, and they were like, what is going on? Like I was quiet, and I just like was trying to get rid of the ball, and I like wouldn't shoot. And like, they were like one of my teammates kind of who was, I was a captain of that team. And then my other teammate, and she like sat me down because we were roommates, and she just said like, what is going on? Like, this is not you, and you're actually hurting our team. Like, because people look to you to like set an example, and like, I don't care what's going on at school. Like, you're here now, and like, we need to count on you to like be better. And that kind of like shook me, and I was like, okay, like I have to do better, and I have to get back to myself. And it didn't happen like the next practice, but it started to happen over the next practices. And by the time the tournament came around, like I was fine and I was good. And then kind of taking that and bringing that back to school when I went, I think it was like a really big change in just like my outlook of what should I do? And who should I be on this team? Because I suck at not being there for people, and I suck at being self-involved, and I shouldn't do that because it's not helping anyone. And so I know a lot of I don't know exactly who it was, but spoke about like listening to other people and taking constructive criticism. And if I would have not been willing to listen, I think that would have been like, I wouldn't be where I am now, right? Like that would have completely changed the trajectory of like my playing career and just like my life in general. And I also think it kind of hits on the point that Avery made about just like not being like, being a starter doesn't mean being a leader, or being a starter does not like mean you're a leader. Being a leader can be independent of that. And I think that is something that I had never learned until my sophomore year. And it served me very well because I wasn't a starter ever at Notre Dame. And if I would have allowed that to like make me sad and just like never, and just like depend everything on that, then it would have really impacted where I'm at. And I think that so at Notre Dame, we had like the starting team and the not starting team, the penny team. And we would play on Wednesdays and we would play against each other. And like 9 times out of 10, the penny team won. Like we beat the starters on a Wednesday when we were playing on a Friday. And the reason for that was just that like we decided that like we knew that we were good and we worked together and we didn't get pissy with each other. And we wanted to be better than the other team. And we wanted to show up and show what we had. And like, if someone made a mistake, we were busting it back to make up for what they had, like if they let someone go by. And like our keepers were wild, flying through the air, like saving these ridiculous saves, like shots, because they knew that like we wanted to work together. And so like just having people on that team that were like, it doesn't matter that we're not starters, like we're going to be better, like we did. And that team actually ended up making the entire team better. And we made it to an Elite Eight and we made it to a Sweet 16. And we were really, really good. But that wouldn't have happened if like our team, our penny team, wasn't willing to step up and take ownership of that. So that was college. College was fun. It was a little crazy, but I learned a lot. And after college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do career-wise. So I decided I knew I still wanted to play soccer, and I knew I still had dreams with the Puerto Rican national team. So I actually went overseas and played in Finland for a season. And that was also a really good experience because when you don't know the language, then your form of leadership and communication changes. So I learned the colors that I needed to know for the pennies, and I learned right, left, drop, and like numbers for drills, but I didn't really learn the language super well. But that showed me just like how important like body language is to leadership, and just in general on a field, and that like you really have to know what you're doing with your body, and that you have to be really aware, because coaches and players take note of that. And even if you're saying everything and being like, yeah, let's go, and your body language sucks, people are going to notice that over what you're saying. And so knowing that like everything that you're doing matters in order to be a leader for your teammates, for your coaches, everything. It establishes trust, and it lets you kind of know, like other people around you know what's going on and how you're feeling, and they take cues from you too. After that, I went to England for a year. I got my master's, and then also played there for Durham. It's like up near Newcastle. And that was, again, more like the language was the same, but just learning different customs and all that type of stuff. But during all of this, like during all the other playing stuff, I think that Puerto Rico has always kind of been a constant. And so I've been lucky enough that I was able to continue playing and have World Cup qualifying and Olympic qualifying, and just like work with a really awesome group of girls throughout the last 8 years, more than that. But like we've been together pretty much since we were like 19 or 20, the core group, and just work with each other to just establish kind of and kind of dream about like, what do we want for soccer in Puerto Rico? So most people think that soccer in Puerto Rico is like that's the main sport, and that's not the case at all. Volleyball and basketball and baseball are like the big sports. Volleyball for girls, and then basketball and baseball for the guys is like the big thing. The boys volleyball team is good too, but soccer didn't really exist on the island at all, really. Like, there was no clubs. There was like 2 fields, and they were horribly overgrown and like had holes in them and everything when I started playing when I was 15 there. So soccer wasn't really a thing. And then when it did become a thing, like in most other places, it was, they focused on the guys, and they focused on getting the guys teams to be good. They weren't very good, but they tried. And so they tried to focus on them. And we were always kind of an afterthought, even though we were actually doing super well in our competitions on the youth side, for a team that doesn't really have funding, et cetera. We were always kind of overlooked. And so the conversation with my teammates and I was always like, okay, so like, where do we want this to go? Like, what do we want to do with this? Because no one's going to do it for us. And that kind of goes back to the initiative, like taking initiative, what Ashlyn was talking about, that like, in order to do anything, you have to take initiative, especially as you get older. No one's going to do anything for you. And so we started talking about that when we were 20. And it took a lot of years to realize that we actually had to like take a stand and do something in order to make anything happen on the island. So we made it to the final round of Olympic qualifying in 2016. We played the US, we played the US, Mexico, and Costa Rica. We were on one side, our 4 teams. And that was the first time any team, men's or women's, had ever made it to that tournament for Puerto Rico. And so we thought that this was the turning point for us. And it was that we were going to get funding, that we were going to have friendly games. We had never, ever had a friendly game ever. That we were going to have like all these things that should come when you're successful, right? After that tournament, we were inactive for 2 years. So our team did not have any friendly games, didn't have any practices, didn't have any camps, nothing for 2 years. And we all had to train on our own. And we kept in constant communication. We were like, hey, like, are you running? Are you doing your sprints? Are you lifting? Are you playing? Like, who are you playing with? And we were constantly talking to each other. And then out of the blue, they called us this was in 2018. They called us for a tournament. We didn't have a coach. We had never played before together. There were like 7 or 8 new girls on the team. We hadn't played together, and we just like showed up to the round of World Cup qualifying and almost made it. And our coach had to go for his wife got in an accident, and they just called someone random from the federation to coach us. And they started making crazy changes, and then we tied, which meant that we didn't pass to the next round. And that was kind of the moment when we were just like, what are we doing? And what is going on? And this can't keep being like this. We've been playing for so many years and nothing's changing. This isn't okay. And so that's kind of when we started. That was May of 2018. And that's kind of when we started like basically saying like, this is enough. And so we started drafting letters to the federation that we were going to send. We started communicating with the press. We started doing interviews for the local media. We started communicating with the men's players to see if they would back what we were saying. And we basically put out a letter and said, like, what's going on is not okay. Here's what needs to change. And like, we're not going to play until you do this. And they ignored our letter. And then we wrote another one. And then we wrote another one. And then we wrote another one. And the only thing that was said was, we will meet with one of you. You can't have any representation. We'll meet with one of you. It has to be a closed conference, and that's it. And I think that the biggest lesson that I learned from that kind of has to do with leadership is just like one is not enough, especially when you're playing a team sport. Like, if you guys have to have a group of leaders and people who fill different roles and people who are willing to take on different responsibilities for your team. One person could be a leader and they could be like the mom, right? Like, I feel like every team has a mom that like takes care of everyone and like brings snacks and is like, and someone's like, I forgot my socks. And they're like, I have 17 pairs. Like, that's one type of leader, right? But then there's other types of leaders that are really like vocal and like kind of tell you how it is. Like, we would call that, we have names for these on my high school team because for some reason, we always have these 4. We have like a mom, we have like the mean one who's like not mean, just like the enforcer kind of. That's kind of what we call her. And then we have someone else who's like the funny one, right? And all these people fill different roles, and they're all leaders and they're all important. And so we kind of said like, nope, we're not meeting just with you guys, like one person, like we're doing this together, we're a team, et cetera, et cetera. It didn't work. They just said, okay, then we're not meeting. And they just kept ignoring us. And so finally, they called us in. One of the things we had requested was friendly games, because again, we had never had a friendly game ever. And if you think about the US national team and how many friendly games they have every single year, yeah, 0, none. And so they gave us a friendly game at the end of August against Argentina, because Argentina was getting ready for the final round of World Cup qualifying. So the games were in Puerto Rico, and they called a bunch of us in, and we kind of said, okay, this is when we have to do something, like this is it. And so we actually I ended up contacting one of the girls from Argentina, and we said, hey, you guys protested. We're going to protest in the middle of this game. There was going to be a kickoff, or they were going to kick off, kick it out of bounds. And then we were going to stand in the middle and just go like this. So like people were going to ask questions, and do that for the first minute of the game and not play, and then continue on and play. And no one knew about this other than our team. And everyone on the bench was like, who wasn't starting was like, yep, like we're going to do it. Our coaches didn't know. One person in the stands knew, so we got a video, which was cool. But we did that, and it just started like forest fire, just like all of these people, like I posted about it. And then Anthony DeChico, who's Tony's son, and I are really close. And he knows everyone in the soccer world, and he just started posting it like just wildfire. And it just like all over Twitter and everywhere. And like Julie Foudy called me, and Mia Hamm called me, and they were like, what can we do to help? And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Like freaking out. I fangirled so hard. There's a video of like, I picked up my phone and it's Mia Hamm, and I was like, it's really embarrassing, but it's fine. But like that, first off, like enough about Mia Hamm, but I think like, and that has now turned into like, we got a new president for the federation. We got a new cabinet. We've gotten paid. We'd never gotten paid ever before. And slowly but surely, like our field status is better. We don't sit for, like, we used to have to wait for the boys clubs to be done before we could practice. So we'd practice at like 9 p.m. Things like that, where like that shouldn't happen to a national team. And that shouldn't happen to like grown women. It's not okay. And so what I learned from that too is just like, it takes a lot of courage to like lead in a big way, and to be willing to put yourself out there. And I'll let you guys in on a secret. It wasn't easy, because the federation, I didn't get called in for a year and a half. Like there was repercussions for me being a leader, and they didn't let me play for a year and a half. And they said that it was because I wasn't good enough, even though I had not been called into a camp. And they just called me in again. So like, it doesn't come without, sometimes it doesn't come without sacrifice, but like, if something is worth it, you kind of have to just be like, okay, like this isn't for me necessarily, right? Like I'm 28, I'm going to retire in like 2 years. But this is for the betterment of the girls who like have watched us, have grown up watching us play, and have been like, I want to be on that team. I want to play soccer. Like, and some of my teammates are playing in Europe right now, and they look at them and they're like, I want to be like that. I want to do that. And like Puerto Rico's never had that. And so to be lucky enough to be able to be someone who can hopefully start a change and make things better for them, was really what it was about. And we're still working. Things are not perfect at all. We've got a lot to do, but I'm hoping that will continue on, and just that was just the beginning, and we can keep working with that. So that's pretty much it.
Nicole, thank you so much that's a really cool story. And I think, I mean, girls, I'm just gonna let you guys ask any questions that you have, because I'm sure you do. And you know, obviously Nicole's got a wide breadth of experience. There's the national team piece. There's, you know, the club soccer piece, which wasn't that long ago. So any of the struggles you guys are going through now, she's been there. With the recruiting piece, with the being in college piece, there's so many aspects to it. So, guys, in terms of asking questions, we can do it a couple ways. I think I prefer if you just hop off mute and then ask your question. If there's something you are thinking of, maybe while someone's talking, feel like you can't get in edgewise, you can just put it in the chat box, and then we can just access it that way. But yeah.
I have a question about, was there a specific coach or experience that led you to want to be a coach, or was it just kind of a natural path from playing?
I think I've always been someone who's really enjoyed just like the tactical part of the game and like figuring things out. And like I'm not very fast. So I've always had to think a lot about when I'm playing. And so that I think combined with just, I've had several coaches been like, you should coach, or just like hop in with in different sessions throughout like college and like help with summer teams and stuff like that. I think it just kind of, I knew I liked soccer and I didn't want to be away from it. And so it just like, it was just kind of a natural path. And I also actually think that it's helped me become a better player because it helps me think about the game in a different way. And so while I'm coaching, I'm thinking from like playing experience, but then when I'm playing, I'm like, oh, what was that thing? I said something really smart to a girl one time because I saw it from the sidelines. Like, what was it? And it just like kind of helps me play too. So I think like if you love the game and you're passionate about like helping people, because it's about soccer, but it's like a lot about people, like just like helping people be better people too. Then like, I think you should coach.
What would you say was the most challenging aspect of being a student athlete in college, like from that point of view?
Time management was wild. I think that just like there was one semester, Sarah will remember it well. It was spring of my sophomore year, spring of her freshman year. We lost in the first round the fall before. They say it wasn't punishment, but it was totally punishment. We had 6 a.m.s every single
punishment.
Yeah, it was absolutely punishment. 6 a.m.s every single day. And then we had practice from either 8 to 10 p.m. or 9 to 11 p.m. And then we had to go to class. And then they would check if we were in class or not. It was great. So just like that alone, just that semester was so hard because it was like, I'm so tired. I have to perform in the weight room, running at practice after that, and then like try and get good grades. And then also trying to balance, like, I want to have friends, right? Like I'm really social. So I wanted to have friends. And I think like someone told me this, I don't remember if this was someone on our team or what, but they said like, when you're a student athlete, you can be really good at like 2 of 3 things. Like you can be good at school, you can be good at your sport, or you can be good at like friends, and like you can pick 2 essentially. And that's like, I would say that's pretty accurate. But your team becomes like your family. So like we were all we still are like super close. And they're the ones who really help you and understand like what you're going through and help you get through. And sometimes you have some geniuses on your team and they can help tutor you. So, but time management, I think.
I have a question. How are you able to keep the hardships you were facing in soccer from affecting your education and like your schoolwork?
That is a great question. I think that they sort of did. Like I think sometimes I was like frustrated. So I was like frustrated in general, but I do think that one of the things I always focused on was I want to get good grades and I want to like do well. And so someone at the beginning said this, but like compartmentalizing things is like you have to turn it on and off. Like when you have a test, like I had a crappy practice and that sucks, but like that's behind me. I can't do anything about that now. I can be better tomorrow, but like what I can do right now is like be better at school and study for this test. And like the same with like, if I was mad at a friend or something, like I couldn't bring that to practice because then I was going to play badly. Like I had to just like, okay, I'm crossing the white lines and like, it doesn't matter. I'll deal with that later. I need to focus on this. And I think that has also kind of helped me like now as like an adult, because like sometimes things are going crazy with work and you have to like shut it off and go play and train and think about that. And like you have relationships. And so you have to just like try and manage that, but it's hard.
I have a question. What was your main motivation like during times when like you weren't like playing or you weren't on like the starting 11? Like what was like the driving force for like you'd like help you like still succeed and work your hardest?
So I think the big turning point was one, deciding that like I was going to play for myself. I think that like a lot of times, especially in club and like growing up, like you're kind of playing for your coaches. And you're like kind of playing, or like your parents, and trying to like make them happy and impress them and all this stuff. And it wasn't until I decided like, okay, like if I don't do this for myself, I'm going to quit. Like if I don't find a reason that I love this and that I want to do well, I'm going to stop playing soccer. And like, I thought about it. I thought about quitting, and I thought about being like, okay, what would my life look like? Would I be happy? Yes, no, I don't know. And just playing for yourself. And then I think the other thing that I did was like play for my teammates. Because I think that teammates and coaches are different, right? Like coaches have some control over like your playing time and all that stuff. Like you earn your playing time and all that. I know that, but like they have it's like a different relationship, but like with your teammates, like I just wanted to be better for them every day. And I knew that if I wasn't starting, the best thing that I could do was play as hard as I could, because North Carolina wasn't going to take it easy on my friend. So like I had to go into every tackle hard, and I had to play them as well as I could so that they would be ready for Friday. And that was kind of the mentality of our penny team, was like, if we go easy on them, they're not going to be ready, and then we're going to lose. So I guess that's kind of, yeah.
Is there any like motto or thing that you sort of went by throughout like club and college and pro that you think we should know?
Not really, but I have one recently that I think is really good. My husband actually showed this to me. I don't remember who it's by, but the quote is "practice becoming." And so like understanding that you're never gonna necessarily like reach it, right? But that like every day you can work towards becoming a better version of yourself and getting better at the things that you can do.
Excuse me, guys. Greg, there's a couple girls that got kicked off. They're in the waiting room.
It's a great question so far, guys. Keep them coming.
Did you always want to play in college, or did it kind of just like come along your path and you went with it?
I didn't know till like my freshman year of high school. My parents are from Puerto Rico. They didn't know anything about the club system. So I actually played rec until 6th grade. And then I played travel soccer 7th and 8th grade. And my travel coach was like, you should go play club. And I was like, what's club? So, and my parents had no idea or anything. So I didn't play club until 9th grade. And that's kind of when I think it was like actually it was sophomore year. Sophomore year, I was like, I need to do this for as long as I can. So yeah.
How did you stay positive during times of frustration?
I think just like leaning on my friends, really. And I think just giving myself the time to be frustrated. So like there was days where I would just like go out to the field by myself and just like smack balls as hard as I could for no reason, just like because it made me feel better. And then I'd be like, okay, like I'm good. And I could like get ready for the next thing. So I think just like finding a way that in a place, there's also a field like near my parents' house. So in high school, I would do this a lot. There's a field near my parents' house that I just like would always go to. And I just like loved it. So I think just like finding a place and a thing that you can do and like containing it to a moment and then being like, okay, like it sucks, but I'm done. And then doing it.
Do you see this question from Lydia?
Yeah. During what season, I guess is what is my question back, Lydia.
Like when you're not having practices or like, I guess your team's like off.
So like in between tournaments and like friendlies and stuff.
Yeah.
So I have to stay fit. And so, like you have to be fit because when you come in, you get tested. So, staying fit, and you have to you have to be able to play still. Like, so if I were to take like 6 months and not touch a ball, that wouldn't be okay. So I found, some teams around here that I can play with. So there's like a women's team that everyone's like ex D1 players and they're actually really good. So I play with them a couple times a week. Not right now because COVID, but generally I've practiced with my high school boys team because they're pretty good too and they're fast. And then just like going out and doing stuff on my own. I'll hop in with my girls, like my high school girls team during season and I'll do all the fitness with them. So just kind of finding ways to stay fit and stay on the ball as much as possible.
What advice would you give for someone who struggles taking initiative?
I'm just going to repeat the question because it was like kind of cutting out, but just make sure you said, what advice would you have for someone who struggles to take initiative? Is that, yeah. I think just like start small. So like, I think that it's something just like with everything, like practice makes you better at it. So starting small and even if that's just like in class, like speaking up for yourself and being like, I have a tournament, I'm sorry, what can I do? Like something like that. One goes a long way with teachers because if just don't show up, like I'm going to be like, where were you? Oh, you had a tournament? That's tough. Like come talk to me, let me know. But just start small with like your parents or with a teacher. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes to kind of advocate for yourself. I don't think taking initiative is necessarily ever easy, but it gets easier. So the more you practice, I think the better and more comfortable and more confident you'll feel. And you won't feel those like butterflies and like, and like the sweatiness that I get that when I like get nervous. So, my biggest role model. So I'd say growing up, it was my older brother, because I just wanted to do everything that he did. But I think there's probably, I'd say like my dad is also someone who I really look up to because he's someone who like, whenever he wants to learn something, he just like goes and reads about it, practices it and like masters it. And I've always been like, wow, that's incredible. And again, he's taking initiative of like, I'm going to go to the store and get a book and read and figure it out. And I think that's something like just because you can't automatically do something doesn't mean you can't do it ever. So just, I think that that's a lesson that I've learned from that, of just like, yeah. I don't know if that answered your question.
What was one of the biggest challenges you faced through like your entire soccer career?
Probably sophomore year, I'd say. I think that was like the worst. I think that was the lowest low. Just because there was a lot of figuring out to do, and re-identifying as a player and as a person. So I think that was really hard. I also do think that it was really hard that like year that I was out from the national team, because I knew I had done the right thing, but I was getting punished for it. So it was like a really hard, like I felt like I had worked so hard to get fit and worked so hard for my teammates and for everyone else. And then I was kind of getting the short end of the stick. So I think that was tough also, but in a different way.
All right, and I know it's possible that, I asked you guys all to prepare questions, possible that Nicole covered a lot of these, and, maybe through answering some of the other questions also answered your questions. Any coaches, any last comments or anything like that before we head off into the weekend?
Well, Nicole, I would like to speak on behalf of everyone. I'd like to thank you very much for your time. You did a great job. It's awesome to have someone that our young female players can look up to and hear, right, and listen to. That's what this program's about. So we appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Davidson's still a pretty place.
I know. I messed up, guys. It's okay.
For those of you not in the know, you may know that Coach Greg Ashton used to coach at Davidson, and Nicole did go on a recruiting trip to Davidson. So they've actually met before.
Yep.
He's almost over it.
Just 10 years later, it's fine.
Almost over it. Yeah, well, just to echo everyone else, thank you so much, Nicole, for agreeing to come on and taking some time out of your schedule. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think you've given us a lot of stuff to think about and a lot of stuff that we can kind of follow in our own, in our own programs. And, even I, listened to this stuff and listened to you talk about sophomore year. I don't think we've ever actually talked about it from like your perspective. I know I had my own perspective, and it's like, man. So I think it's really, really appreciated hearing some of that stuff. So, and maybe did not appreciate the reminder about the 6 a.m. workouts. I'm trying to block that out. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, girls. If you have any final questions or anything like that, just real quick before we go.
If you guys think of a question at some other point, you can either tell Sarah or my Instagram is public because I don't post anything I shouldn't on there, So you guys can find me on Instagram and just send me a message, and I'd be happy to answer it.
And you might get some followers out of this. You're active on Twitter as well, or you have Twitter as well.
Yeah, so you guys can follow me on Twitter also. I don't really post that much on Twitter unless it's like, but I also don't post that much on Instagram, let's be honest. But I will answer your questions if you have them.
Yeah. All right. Well,
thank you
again for the millionth time. Thank you. And girls, I think you are enjoy the weekend. Win some soccer games.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.